Some people play Genshin Impact for the meta. Some play for the lore. Some play because they spent too much money on the game and don't have the heart to give it up now. Why do I play? For the characters with fun playstyles, also the money part. As soon as I saw that you can surf with Mualani, I knew I had to get her. So I sacrificed Emily and held on to a guarantee to get her on my main account as soon as the maintenance was over. But I didn't stop there. I had previously claimed the Nouvellette Apollo gems on some of the reroll accounts to keep for future challenge runs. Now it was time to put those primos to good use. Hopefully.
I'm Bennett! I'm Bennett! I'm Bennett! I'm Bennett!
This wasn't even all of the Bennetts. The fact that 50-50 became a 55-45 and somehow I still managed to lose it twice is beyond me.
I am Jean.
3 times, I guess.
Thank you for joining me, traveler. I'm Mualani, a guide from the people of the Springs. If you need anything, just raise your hand and let me know. Now, please stow your weapon, secure your belongings, keep a firm hold on Paimon, and most importantly, let go of your troubles. I prepared a Sharky surfboard for you, so hop on and try not to fall. Alrighty, let the journey begin!
Trust me, I was as shocked as you all probably are. Mualani is home now, so it's time to go over the rules. We're adding a few new rules here. First off, I can only play with Mualani, but I can use other characters for story-necessary non-battle mechanics. Additionally, while any catalyst is allowed, if I manage to get her signature weapon, I cannot use it until I arrive in Inazuma. I never thought I would have this issue, so it was a useless rule, but, well, Arlecchino kinda threw that one for a loop. This will also be the start of combining Mondstadt and Liyue into one video. Going forward, I'll probably combine most solo runs into 2 nation bundles, except Arlecchino, but we'll get into that later. With all that out of the way, let's begin. Editing right here. As it turns out, I seem to be allergic to just about everything, and I've been battling allergies for a good month or 2. This recording in particular, despite sounding like a chain smoker, was my best take, so please bear with it. Hopefully I'll sound and feel less miserable soon. Before I started the 3 temples, I decided to try to do her test run so I could get a feel of her playstyle since, at the time of filming, she and 5.0 had just come out like an hour or 2 prior. Starting in 5.0, the Natlan characters' test runs are not in a domain, and instead are in an open world style area. That way we can test both their battle mechanics and their world exploration abilities. However, before you complete the 3 temples, you're locked into a small area of Mondstadt. As such,
How about we explore the area ahead of us later?
I guess we'll circle back to this after Act 1. We head out to find Amber, and at this point I find out that Mualani is surprisingly glitchy. To be fair, Mondstadt is notoriously pretty buggy because it was the beta map, but pair it with Mualani, especially her surfing, well, you can see why I kind of gave up on trying to skip the domain. I decided at this point going forward, instead of wasting time trying and failing to skip the domain, if I can't succeed the first time, I'll just use Amber. How did she miss? After getting through Amber's domain, our next destination is Kaya. Again, not much of a challenge. Also, because I keep seeing comments about it, here's me going and getting the chest over here. I'll remember it for future runs. And she missed. Again. This is going to be interesting. Finally, we head to Lisa. That whole thing I said about skipping Amber's domain, that doesn't apply here. It's easy enough to skip this domain, it's really just a skill issue. I guess 3rd time's the charm because this time Mualani actually hits the target and we complete Lisa's domain. Act 1 of Mondstadt is done, so now it's time for leveling up and discussing the pros and cons of Mualani. Before I start, I think I need to preface that these pros and cons mainly focus on the pros and cons of the character from a solo challenge perspective. Not everything will necessarily apply to a team setting. The primary reason I wanted to do this playthrough, as well as other Natlan characters, is because the Natlan exploration benefits are so much fun. I never thought I'd see a power creep on exploration, but I guess anything is possible in Genshin Impact. Not only are her idols super cute to watch, but look at her when she's fighting. I love it so much. Of course, that includes her surfing as well. It allows her to jump higher, which comes in handy for exploration. However, there is a caveat with her surfing, which we'll get into later. Additionally, one of Sharky's other uses is something that puts Mualani in a category only shared by a few other catalysts, the ability to break rocks. After suffering during Wanderer only, this was welcomed. Another pro is, well, like Arlecchino and other more recently released characters, she's really powerful. Her attack scaling off of HP is an additional help in early game, since one of the first artifact sets we can build on, Adventurer, gives a 1000 HP boost for the 2-piece set. Even just with that, she does incredibly insane damage for early game. Finally, her elemental skill cooldown is really short, and she has really amazing energy recharge, especially once you unlock her initial passive talent, which is great because her regular attack damage is pretty awful. Additionally, the time it takes to fire off each attack feels much slower than, say, Wanderer, so you're almost exclusively reliant on her elemental skill to do any meaningful damage. Her aim is awful. Oh my god, I thought Wanderer's aim was bad, but this is abysmal. Additionally, while she is able to break rocks with Sharky, it doesn't deal physical damage to enemies. As a catalyst, especially a Hydro Catalyst, she doesn't do any physical damage without a weapon specifically for that purpose, so she can't fight Hydro Slimes or break the shields of Hydro Abyss Mages. The latter becomes an excruciating problem later. Finally, while her surfing is amazing and so much fun, as with all the Natlan characters, the Night Soul benefits are pretty average outside of Natlan. Within open world Natlan, the ability uses Phlogiston to increase the time you can remain in Night Soul's blessing stay with Mualani. Without that, you can only really stack the Sharky's bites once or maybe twice per skill cast. After that, you just kinda have to run around and dodge while waiting for the cooldown because her standard attacks are, again, not particularly powerful. She also stops replenishing stamina while in Night Soul's blessing state, which means it doesn't really gain anything for exploration advantages, except the jumping height I mentioned previously. After a little over an hour of surfing across the map, unlocking waypoints, doing ley lines, well, until my mortal enemy was a part of it, and leveling up the Leeway and Mondstadt statues, I hit AR10 and it's time to start Act 2. Honestly, if this was a speedrun, I'd be making pretty solid time. Venti sends us on a wild goose chase around Mondstadt, and while he may be able to control the wind and float himself up the wall, I do not. So, like a totally normal individual would, we use the stairs. My new favorite thing is avoiding Amber's story quest until at least Act 2, so she's just awkwardly standing in the background during our first meeting with Venti. When you replay the same story repeatedly, it's the little things. Now it's time for fighting the Eye of the Storm, which means a whole lot of running in circles waiting for it to come to the ground.
Let's shred, Sharky!
I guess at least I got the right aim when it counted. Even broken clocks are correct twice a day, right? After taking care of the Eye of the Storm, it's time to head to the church to commit some crimes. Or, well, one crime. You know, as fun as sneaking around the basement of the church, escaping, then going to the Fatui hideout is, we could have saved so much time and effort if we just went to Jean with Venti first. If Venti's song was able to convince Diluc so easily, I'm sure it would have convinced Jean if she wasn't immediately convinced from just meeting Venti. But the plot, I guess. Regardless, we head to the Fatui hideout with Diluc. We strike fear into the Fatui guard, because Mualani is truly the epitome of intimidating. Okay, genuine question, and obviously I'm not going to Google this because that would be too easy, but is the key always in the last room you check, regardless of the order you go in? All 3 times that I've done this, it's been in the last room. Is it randomized and I just suck? Or is it just the last room no matter what? Regardless, we finally get to head up to fight the Pyro Agent, and if you thought Wanderer fighting him was bad, trust me, this one was worse. What are you aiming at? At least I dodged the major attack. We go back to the tavern, drop off the Holy Lyre with Venti, and leave again to go find some more dragon tears. When I was a kid, I had hoped to find a dragon scale to go to Dragonland, but now I search for dragon tears. A depressing yet fitting motif for life. The Ruin Guard is really not much of a challenge, and the first tier is collected. I truly don't know what inclined me to try to fight these two, considering they're both higher level than I am, and I'm at a type disadvantage since I can't burn shields. But I think I was suffering sleep deprivation at this point in the recording, and my brain capacity had pretty much gone out the window. You'll see more of this later. After a tactical retreat, sort of, we get the second tier, and now it's time to head to the domain for the last tier. Honestly, by this point, it was nearly 4 AM, but I was determined to finish at least Act 2 today. I had originally planned on uploading this before her banner ended, so I thought I needed to speedrun it. We obviously see how that worked out.
Check this out! Best of luck!
We break the Pyro Abyss Mage's shield a second time, and I cannot express how excited I was to log off and go to sleep. The warm embrace of my bed was the only thing pushing me to finish Act 2. After collecting the 3rd tier, it's time to head to Dawn's Winery to meet the Dvalan Defense Force, D2F for short. I love how many little mechanisms they had just in the Mondstadt Archon quests that you'd never see again, like how we repair the lyre or us shooting wind at Dvalan's butt. We head to Star Snatch Cliff, and at this point I was spamming B so I could just finish the quest. Dvalan yells at us, we get bullied by an Abyss Mage, and we finish Act 2, which also means I promptly turned my PC off and went to sleep.
I'm just a big toasty cinnamon bun. I never want to leave this bed.
After sleeping for probably 4 days, it's time to start our grind for Air 18. For this, I primarily did daily commissions, quests, and even a new world quest Genshin released in 5.0. In this new world quest, we assist an adventurer in her travels to Liyue, which honestly felt really wholesome, especially for veteran players that haven't done much Liyue exploration lately. We take a group picture at the Stone Gate and then head to Wangshu Inn for a meal together. A bowl of rice bigger than her head. You know what? Paimon gets it. I do hope we actually get to see her again in another future world quest because that was just really wholesome. After finishing our daily commissions and heading to Liyue for Catherine, we returned to grinding with the ley lines. After slow progress, I resigned to starting Amber's story quest.
There it is!
Starting in, I think, 4.8, Amber's story quest got, well, nerfed. The first part of the exam is the same, but when you return to Mondstadt for the last section of the exam, you just spin around Barbados' statue a few times. Kind of a bummer, truthfully. We head towards the Adventurers Guild, and, well...
Windborne Traveler! You are required to land at once by the order of the...
I don't know if that was my fault or not. After reviving, we continue Amber's story quest and head to the domain. This is another one of those little mechanisms I referenced earlier. Did we ever do anything like this again? I wrap up Amber's story quest after failing to beat the domain without help. Thanks, Amber. And return to my leyline grinding. With no desire to do Lisa or Zhangling's story quest, but still short of AR-18, I made the totally reasonable decision to go to Dragonspine, because that's gone so well for me before. I tried to beat the Frosted Law Churl, and I actually almost did, until I died from sheer cold. Maybe I'll cut my losses and just go do Lisa's quest.
Psych!
I went back to my old reliable, farming ley lines. I ended up 5 experience points from AR-18, but having a huge brain, I remembered there's a chest at Dawn Winery I hadn't opened yet. I go find it, and finally hit AR-18. That speedrunning record I had at the start of Act 2 no longer applies. We start Act 3, and I'm reminded the first part of the quest is fighting an Abyss Mage. More specifically, a Hydro Abyss Mage. Fantastic. Luckily, there are some cryo flowers close by, so I just kind of pushed it that way, with this CLE just watching, and froze the shield until it broke, and got the most satisfying Abyss Mage defeat. Well, mostly. We make short work of the monsters trying to prevent us from breaking through the barrier and enter Stormterror's lair. Breaking the seals was a piece of cake, especially considering it's much easier to fight a Pyro Abyss Mage with a Hydro character.
You had one job.
Just the one?
And I even stumbled upon the unusual Hilly Churl. With the seals broken, we return to the tower and it's time to take on Dvalan. Mualani officially takes the prize as the first of the solo runs who was able to beat Dvalan in 1 round. Impressive, honestly. Back in Mondstadt, we help Otto and the Knights by cleaning up the barricades, though it's a pretty slow process. Kaya sweet talks us, Amber feeds us, and then we head to the church to return what we totally didn't steal, though we definitely tried. Venti loses his Gnosis, and we follow him to Windrise, where we finish Act 3, completing the Mondstadt Archon quest. But we're not done yet. Like I mentioned earlier, going forward, my challenge videos will be at least split into 2 nation bundles. Arlecchino will be the exception, so I can have one challenge where I actually give more to recapping the Archon quests. She's also my most popular video series, so just think of it as getting more content. With the end of Mondstadt, a few teleport waypoints are automatically unlocked, one of them being at the entrance to Natlan. So, off to Natlan we go. I tried to avoid the quest for the Saurian companion just because it honestly makes me sad, but we don't really get a choice. I also struggle with naming on the spot, so I didn't think I had to do this yet, and I really didn't prepare anything. In a panic, I stole a name I saw in passing on Twitter. Morlax it is. Thanks, random internet stranger. Back on track, I make my way to the People of the Springs and do some farming for Mualani's level up materials. Next, we head back to find the
Mahajapit, Majahapit, Mapajahit, Mahapajit, Mapajahit, Majapahit.
We'll just call it the Gold Flame Tyrant. This is actually another pro with Mualani I hadn't mentioned earlier. For the majority of characters, their boss is the same element as they are. Cryo characters have cryo bosses, pyro characters have pyro bosses, etc. This obviously is an annoying problem for solo challenge runs. However, Mualani is an exception. Her boss is Pyro. That doesn't mean it's an easy battle by any means, because once it enters the Golden Flame form, it's fast moving and long range, making it pretty inconvenient. I guess it wouldn't be much fun if it was easy. With enough materials to ascend Mualani once I hit AR 25, it's time to go back to Mondstadt to finish some side quests. After helping Cyrus clean out some of the nearby hilly trail camps, we hit AR 20, and the Traces of Artistry event is unlocked. What does that mean? It's time to go back to Natlan and get Mualani her weapon. The Ashgraven Drinking Horn, besides being a mouthful, is one of Mualani's best free-to-play weapons, behind the craftable Natlan Catalyst. However, this event weapon adds a bonus that is vital for this challenge: AoE attack damage. Occurring every 15 seconds, this is pretty much my only way to do damage against Hydro enemies. It also doesn't require the luck of pulling one of the 2 physical damage bonus catalysts, or suffering through the Dragonspine exploration for the Frostbearer. Another day of daily commissions starts with Ellen needing help breaking all of the hilly trail training dummies in under 2 seconds. Except, it went about as well as you could expect.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
How can I smash all these trains? Huh. So that's how to do it.
In hindsight, I don't know what inclined me to go back to Dragonspine, but this time I decided I would try sneaking around the Lodge Trail to get what I needed to unlock the Frostbearing tree. And it worked. Sort of. Not my proudest moment. Maybe it's because I don't do my daily commissions nearly as often as I should, but I didn't know this was a possible outcome for this quest. I thought if you didn't wake up the hilly trails, you got the good ending, and if you woke them up, you got the bad ending. The more you know, I guess. Anyways, after finishing this day of daily commissions, I go back to the weapons material domain. I run it so many times that I lost count and eventually hit AR 23. Time to head to Liyue. Starting Act 1, we talk to some locals who insist on reminding us that we're foreigners.
That's what foreigners always say.
Are you also foreigners here for the Rite of Dissension?
As if my outfit didn't speak for itself. We make our way up to Yujing Terrace, offer some incense, and then watch Rex Lapis fall from the sky.
That's rough, buddy.
We make our escape without being noticed. Well, until the cutscene. But it's fine. Why? Because it's time for one of the most iconic lines in Liyue.
Hey, girlie, hold still.
Child invites us to Northland Bank, where he tells us how to find Mooncarver, which is cool, except I haven't explored over there yet. Maybe I should have done that instead of running around Dragonspine. Live and learn, I guess. Get to Mooncarver's abode, we make easy work of the Millelith who followed us there. At Mooncarver's suggestion, we seek out the other Adepti, starting with Mountain Shaper. Now, while Sharky may be able to break rocks, it doesn't mean it's particularly fast. Each of the Amber requires 3 Sharky cycles to shatter. And, per usual, Li Dang was near the bottom of the mountain. With the brothers reunited, we earn the ire of Mountain Shaper, which, I mean, is fine, because at least it got him out of his cave. Next up, it's Cloud Retainer.
Someone cooked your...
We make some food offerings and head inside Cloud Retainer's abode. Typically in solo runs, I've seen people use the tree over here as a way to jump for the next platform. This is the first run that I've actually had to try this, since Arlecchino just triggered the Pyro Monuments and completed the domain as intended, and, spoiler alert, Wanderer can just fly across. I spent probably 15 minutes trying to jump across from the tree, and after repeated fails, a new idea dawned on me. What if I just jump across?
That idea may just be crazy enough to get us all killed!
After 2 failed attempts testing my options, third time was apparently the charm because I made it across and was able to go meet Cloud Retainer. Saving the best for last, it's time to go find Zhao.
And here we go. I hope you're hungry. For nothing.
We meet Zhao, see this cute dog, and go find the ghost freaking out the cook. We actually catch up to her, but she disappears. Unfortunate. The Ruin Hunter wasn't much of a challenge, and we head back to Wangshuin to get Zhao's tofu and lure him out like cheese in a mousetrap. With all the Adepti convening a council to decide Liyue's fate, I'm sure it'll be fine. We head back to Northland Bank, update Child, and finish Act 1. Since I was already nearly to AR 25, I primarily spent my time, and resin, challenging the ley lines and Mualani's boss. After a short while, I hit AR 25, and while I opted to wait on the Adventure Rank Ascension domain, I did make sure to ascend Mualani and her weapon. It's time for Act 2, aka running errands for Zhongli. Let's see. We boil some rocks, thanks Amber, again. Fight off monsters after we ruin their meal, buy some of the rocks we boiled, get bullied by a flower shop owner, ask some ladies about smelling good, get harassed by women who make perfume. I feel like I'm making a remix of the Phineas and Ferb theme song. After all the errands, it's time for another errand. But this time we get to battle too. We talk to Madame Ping and head inside of her teapot. Honestly, after all the running around and dialogue, this was refreshing. We beat up a bunch of slimes, kill some spiders, and finally find the cleansing bell. Our battle was only a brief repose, because now it's time for more errands.
Can't do anything fun, because I'm doing so many stupid errands.
We buy some kites, and finally the genius idea of paying other people to do the work comes up. As a thanks for saving us from more errands, we pay the guys the max they requested for work. Well, minus the last guy. We ran out of money, so we gave him what's left, and a flower, which I guess worked. With most of the errands done, it's time to go to Boo Boo Pharmacy. Unfortunately, Chi-Chi sends us on an errand too. After this quest, I honestly can't blame the traveler for initially refusing to help Inazuma. Probably would have done the same. We head to the ballista, and I get another chance to actually fight. Back to the pharmacy we go, and we disappoint Chi-Chi the same way she disappoints us. Zhongli invites us to eat as a reward for all of our work. This doesn't feel like an equivalent exchange, but at least it's almost over. Ganyu surprises us from the roof of the restaurant, instead of, you know, at ground level, like a normal person, and we finally finish Act 2, thank God. I went back to Natlan for some more domain runs, this time for talent level up materials. Unfortunately, the enemies of the lowest level of the domain are the baby Saurians. Why do they make us suffer this way? I closed my eyes and ran the domain until I had enough to at least level up our talents. Never again. During the time I was recording, the Brilliant Dawn daily login event was ongoing. Most of the free pulls resulted in just 3-star weapons that I didn't need, but I was determined to see if I could get lucky again and get Mualani's signature weapon. And then, it happened. The gold. Well, I put my new 5-star sword on Jean. How unfortunate. After a few days of daily commissions and leyline challenges, I decided it was time for the Ascension domain. So, dear viewer, how long do you think it took me to defeat the 15 monsters out of the 2 minutes we're given? 30 seconds. It took me exactly 30 seconds. Alone. She did actually take a whole 4 seconds longer than Arlecchino, so do with that information what you will. Man, I was so close. Okay, maybe I wasn't that close. A few more leyline challenges, and an unspeakable amount of baby Saurians slaughtered in the talent domain later, I finally hit AR 28, and it's time to start Act 3.
And I've decided that I want to die.
We finally make it to the top of the mountain and start the quest. Obviously, Mualani is an animo, so it's time for my now C1 Jean and her Freedom Sworn sword to shine. But of course, this is a Mualani only challenge, so I gotta take Jean off my team before I move on. Oh, sick. Okay, I'll just take her off my team after I get over there. That's fine, I guess. This shot me kind of high. I should just float down with the wind current, right? This cannot be real life. On my third attempt, I'm finally able to get across, and immediately leave because it doesn't get us to the Jade Chamber. Depressed, we go back to the ballista, avoiding every enemy on the way, because if I got thrown off the mountain at this point, I probably would have scrapped the whole video. We beat up the Millilith, again, and get to meet Kuching, who actually tells us how to get to the Jade Chamber. Paimon's gift sent us on a detour, and of course the slime we have to beat up is a Hydro Slime. It couldn't be a Pyro or a Cryo Slime. All I could really do was just hit it a bunch of times until the weapon's passive activates and deals some damage. And then repeat. Finally, we can go and beat up some treasure hoarders, help the trapped man, and get our free fancy box. Now off to the Jade Chamber we go.
Look at me. I'm the captain now.
Ningguang super subtly directs us to investigate the Fatui camp, but before I go, I, of course, have to break out my new favorite companion, the Firstborn Fire Sprite. Oh my god, this little guy is so cute.
I've only had Arlo for a day and a half, but if anything happened to him, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself.
We go and beat up the Fatui agents, find a bunch of sigils of permission, and just leave it alone to go find Zhongli. None of our business, right?
Did you witness anything strange in the area?
What, witness?
Yes.
Is this camera on?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, nah, I ain't seen nothing. I ain't seen nothing. Matter of fact, I'm blind in my left eye.
Zhongli makes us sing to flowers, and we sing so badly that the flowers attack us.
I'm in the thick of it, everybody knows.
What happened? These flowers are jumping. They're really angry.
Yango comes to the rescue and gives us her flower, and our errands are finally complete. For real this time, I hope.
What happened? The city gate is swarming with Millilith and the Fatui?
This atmosphere is highly abnormal.
Yeah, no kidding. Did you see the weather change just now? It's finally time for our face-off with Child at the Golden House. Genshin's first Hydro DPS meets the newest Hydro DPS. And for you, dear viewer, minus the cutscene, I will give you the full, unedited fight, all 3 phases.
This chance is hard to come by, so show me all you've got. So very few ever get the chance to square off with the Fatui Harbinger. So come now, amuse me, and don't you dare disappoint. You've got a tricker. Haha, good. No wonder Senora was so wary of you. Well, that...
You got to the Gnosis ahead of me, didn't you? Did you simply move faster? Or did you leak the information regarding the Golden House to me on purpose?
said it was a long fight. I asked my community tab for you guys to choose who you think would be faster between Arlecchino and Mualani. If you guessed Arlecchino, congratulations. You were wrong. Believe it or not, Mualani actually beat Childe faster than Arlecchino did. I didn't believe it either, so let's do a side-by-side. Now, there are a few things of note in this comparison. Mualani's weapon, Ashgraven Drinking Horn, at Refinement 3, deals AoE attack damage on an enemy equal to 60% of Mualani's max HP. This triggers every 15 seconds. This alone played a massive role in her fight. However, Childe's boss has a 50% Hydra resistance during Phase 1 and a 70% resistance in Phase 3. Meanwhile, Arlecchino's weapon, her signature weapon, gives her a damage boost whenever she has a Bond of Life active, which is usually. She gains a 12% damage bonus for just having the Bond of Life active, and an additional 24% bonus for 36% total damage bonus if her Bond of Life is at least 30% of her max HP. She also doesn't have a resistance to worry about. However, Childe put up his shield almost immediately with Arlecchino, which gave Mualani a bit of advantage on time. All in all, you be the judge. Next up, it's time for the defensive leeway from Osile with the help of the Adepti. With all said and done, I feel like I handled myself pretty well in this battle. I don't gain any sort of advantage, or disadvantage, from the rain, so it was really just hoping for the best. I think the sheer amount of enemies is also a little bit of a disadvantage just because of the short time that her skill is up, but we make it work, and before long, the Fatui are defeated. But Osile isn't. RIP to the Jade Chamber, you won't get fixed because I probably won't do your quest. We return to Northland Bank to find Zhongli and get a bonus of Childe and Signora.
Oh my god, I can't believe my eyes.
Back at Yujing Terrace, we observe the 7 kites? We go talk to Zhongli, wrapping up Act 3 and completing the Liyue Archon quest. Returning to Mondstadt, it's time to go find Catherine to begin the Dainsleif quest. After checking with Lawrence and Wagner, we're directed to Angelshare. I do love how so many consequential stories in Mondstadt involve this specific bar in one way or another. Meanwhile, they're just playing TCG at the other bar. We talk to Charles, wait for the blonde stranger with an eye patch, and soon enough, he arrives. You know, everyone referred to Dainsleif as the stranger with an eye patch, but does this even count as an eye patch? I mean, both of his eyes are visible. If anything, it's just a half mask? An eye mask, maybe? Anyways, the masked stranger is ever so kind enough to let us commission him, but not before...
Who approaches the bridge of death must answer me these questions 3.
I decided to make a point to answer his questions in a way I know I've never answered before, to see if his reaction changes. And turns out, it does. Hopefully this doesn't have consequences, but it's cute that it's here. We head to the Temple of the Falcon for, what, the 3rd time, at least? To go beat up some hilly trails. This domain is pretty convenient for Mualani this time, with the enemies primarily being Pyro. I mean, the Abyss Mage didn't even get the chance to put his shield up.
Let's shred, Jackie!
I knew that there were 2 Abyss Mages at the end of this domain, after suffering with Arlecchino, but I couldn't remember what the other one's element was, so I just kind of hoped it was Cryo. Well, I guess it can't all be easy. The Hydro Abyss Mage mainly consisted of running around in circles, dodging bubbles, badly, until Mualani's weapon passive reset and I could chip away at the shield. It was a slow process, but eventually the mage went down and it was another satisfying one-shot, if you could call it that.
The Abyss. It is chaos, and it is also destruction.
He sounds like he spent too much time on Tumblr back in the day when he talks like this. Our next trip is to Wolvendom, which means getting to beat up more enemies. After Liyue, just getting to run around and beat up enemies to continue the quest feels like a dream come true. After clearing out the hilly trail groups and reading whatever that is, Dean directs us to Stormterror's lair. Oh, good.
Check this out. Best of luck!
Back in the kitchen!
I'm serious, Squidward!
After that circus act, we wrap up the Dainsleif quest by going to the top of the cliff and touching a dandelion, which randomly gives us literal war flashbacks. Man, Teyvat's got some crazy plants. With the Dainsleif quest complete, it's time to head to Liyue so we can start the final quest requirement to unlock Inazuma. Ganyu and Lin inform us about some suspicious activity going on with the treasure hoarders in the Abyss, and so of course, it's up to us to go check it out. Unfortunately, like with the Liyue Archon quests, I was reminded that I still didn't unlock that many teleport waypoints, so I had to make a little journey to get to the domain. domain. Sparing you all from an hour-long video of me just walking from point A to point B, I make it to the domain and it's time to go investigate. Considering I get comments whenever I miss chests, I did my best to find all the chests I could in this domain. We make our way to the center of the domain to find the, not headless treasure hoarder, but God, they sure made him creepy. Crazy. Anyways, it's time to make our escape, and I know there are chests lining this escape route, but I just don't care that much about them. I'm just trying to not fall to my death this time. Like that. We make it through on the second attempt, and at this point I'm reminded that the enemy ahead is an Abyss Herald. More specifically, the Hydro Abyss Herald. This should be fun.
Pirates never seen it before! Careful! Please don't get cocky! Oh! Ah! Off we go! Carving waves!
Oh, that wasn't so bad. Escaping the ruins, we run into Dainsleif again, who invites us to join his investigations of whatever that was we just saw, which unfortunately means a lot more walking to areas I haven't unlocked yet. Maybe I'll learn one day. Probably not though. This entire quest pretty much consists of beating up various Abyss mages, but luckily there weren't any Hydro Abyss mages. I'll take the small victories where I can get them. We wrap up in Liyue for now and head to Mondstadt to, as Dane puts it, mingle with the sisters. Hear me out here, but I would love to see Rosaria and Dane in a room together. They're both so...
Tonight will be the night that I will fall for you.
Maybe add the new Natlan guy too, but I digress. Now in Wolvendom, we run into Jean and leave the Abyss mages and Hilly Charles to her while we go check on Andreas. Of the 3 times we fight the Abyss Herald in this quest, this fight is the only time we have to actually beat his second phase, which is pretty much a harder version of trying to break a Hydro Mage's shield. This took a while. 3 to 5 business days later, or at least that's how it felt, I was finally able to complete the battle and move on with the quest. Meeting back up with Dane, we head to Stormterror's lair to find the eye, and then, because of course, it's time to go back to the ruins we barely escaped from earlier. We make it back to the inverted statue without falling to our deaths once, which I think might be a new record. Good for us. Not gonna lie, being labeled Enemy of the Abyss goes kinda hard. I'd be proud of that if I were Dane. After a brief fight, we're rewarded with a POV of getting choked by Dainsleif. Oh, and a reunion with our twin. I guess that's important too. Watching this cutscene again, I can kind of see why Hoyover's trained with Lumine as the canon Abyss twin. While Lumine's outfit is super versatile and fits both Abyss Princess and Traveler, Ether looks a little goofy as the Abyss Prince. We've reached the end of the interlude chapter, so next up will be Inazuma, but that'll have to wait until the next installment. I haven't quite decided if my next video will be Arlecchino and Inazuma in the Chasm, or Wanderer and Liyue and Inazuma. I guess you'll have to tune in for next time to find out. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.